Patrick is way more official and prepared, I think, than we were even prepared for, because he's been doing this for such a long time and he's got a ton of content out there on various topics.
Yeah, if you're interested in conspiracy stuff like this, go find my show.
You really should if you are interested, because he's got a lot of stuff out there on it. But
I've spent hundreds of hours at this point digging into all this stuff, all very well documented.
This is, I feel like, our episode of dipping our toe into some of that, but I would say probably not like the main focus of Reform or Die, you know, but I like that we're doing a little bit of crossover and that this was a fun collab.
It's the Reform or Die podcast, where nothing is off limits and everything must be reformed.
Welcome back to the Reform or Die podcast. This is Kyle, your host. We have a very fun topic tonight on aliens, and I'm going to introduce some of our in-house folks here. So Barry, say hello to the pod.
Hey, Kyle. Good to be here.
Barry's here. We got Jacob.
What's up?
And we have Patrick, who is a new guest to the show. So say hey, Patrick.
Hey, this is Patrick Ryan, host of Crytic Accounts.
There you go.
Happy to be here.
Pat, yeah, we're sort of like a collab today. I mean, Patrick's being gracious to show up on the Reform or Die podcast because he's been doing podcasting for a long time, I would say. How long you been into podcasting?
Oh, I did my first one, I think 14 years ago.
Yeah, see, Patrick's got he's got the history, so we've got a real expert on our hands here today. But fun topic, kind of an interesting one for Christians to talk about, because not everybody thinks aliens are real. And I would say I probably come in at the less real side of the spectrum than other people. So, Barry, some of the reason we wanted to talk about this was because of the Steven Spielberg movie that just came out, which was called
Disclosure Day.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting timing with how the government just released their own information. But the movie was about, also, if you don't want to hear any spoilers, you can fast forward about a minute and a half and then we'll pass all that. Movie's basically about the government has a secret. Aliens have been here. They've been covering it up. They've been interrogating, ultimately torturing them to reproduce their technology. It's been hidden. There's a group of people who no longer want to keep the secret. They believe that the truth should be known, so they have a giant chase where they run away and eventually they decide they're going to release the information. Throughout all of that, we learn that these aliens are, better, more smarter, more empathetic. And that's the whole point of the movie, ultimately, is that, they're a higher level, they're closer to God. There's a little bit of liberalism mixed in there, but...
Was it like humans bad, aliens good? Was that kind of a vibe?
I mean, it was like empathy good.
Okay.
And it was a whole liberalism idea, like, oh, they're just afraid. If you can't, you're just afraid. You need to have more feeling and more emotions and whatnot.
Interesting. Yeah, and it's kind of an interesting topic for Christians in general, and especially because there was that big hubbub about Steven Spielberg saying, like, this will rock your faith if you're a Christian.
There were Christians in there. I mean, they made some points, from like the Catholic perspective. And they, some ladies were going to worship and did the cross to the alien people. And there was a mix of all that stuff, like basically the idea that, we just can't understand the highest being. I mean, he doesn't understand the Christian faith at all. To assume that, God could even be a somewhat higher being when God's outside of the created world.
It sounds like predictive programming for what the government's doing with disclosure currently, and
it probably is.
Works out really well.
That is really interesting.
Okay, so why do you say the timeline's working out well? Is that like
because as this aliens.gov thing comes out, like they registered this a few months ago, we've got congressmen now investigating all of it. Like it's a whole big thing that's happening, and they just keep on like given little bits. Like most of what they've acknowledged so far is just stuff we already kind of knew about, but now the government's full on getting money. Like, yeah, that was real. We've kind of been gaslighting you for about 50 years now. That's our bad. But like, we're being honest now for sure. Here's everything we kind of know, but not everything. Like we're just kind of confirming what you already kind of suspected.
Trust us, bro.
Yeah. And now all this is, I mean, depending on how much you believe in like predictive programming, the way that they kind of, these satanic groups kind of have to put out in front of you what they're going to do, which makes you complicit. It just feels like.
I mean, I would say that if you're going to release big information that you're worried how it's going to react to people, you'd want to prime them a little bit anyway, even if you're just, think you're doing it for their best interest. If you think you're better than them, let's warm them up a little bit as before we drop the.
Yeah, like if aliens really were real, I would expect them to try to, give us a little bit of a, heads up before they really dunk us, deep into the pool.
So what is the most interesting thing that you've seen, that you personally have seen from the files?
I mean, like I said, most of it was stuff we already kind of knew about. Like they're just kind of confirming a lot of stuff that was already floating around.
What about confirmation? Anything big that was interesting?
I haven't been surprised. I mean, I haven't gone through everything. Like there's tons of stuff on that website.
So Patrick, are you team government is lying to us or they're actually prepping us for the truth kind of thing?
I think we're getting prepped for something.
Okay.
Honestly.
You think it's going to be prep for the truth or prep for a lie?
It's a prep for a lie. It's kind of, I don't know how deep you want to go right at the beginning of the episode.
Well, we should get into some of the scriptures because, this is sort of a weird episode in the sense that, for us on Reform or Die, part of the impetus for this was that Steven Spielberg had made that comment about your faith will be rocked by the knowledge that that's coming or something to that effect. I need to maybe just insert the Steven Spielberg clip here in post because I didn't have it pulled up previous to this, but. If so, it'll probably be inserted right here. But if not, then we'll just keep rolling. But and some people said too that it wasn't as bad as like it got taken out of context. Like later on, he did not say as forcefully against Christianity or anything like that as it came across from some of the clips.
I think the clip was kind of cut out of context to say oh, this is going to shake your faith. You're going to basically people are spreading around saying, oh, the Christians couldn't handle this if they found out about aliens. But then I think the greater context of the clip was something to do with God being the God of all beings. If there are aliens, God is the God of them too. And then it's okay, well, as a Christian, I believe that if there were other beings somewhere out there, which I'm not super in the camp of aliens, but I'm also not going to just dismiss it. But if they did exist, they would still be under God, right? They'd still be a creation of His. So I don't know.
That's kind of my gist a little bit. But I mean, that's the thing that's hard for me, and we will get into verses here in 1 second. But the thing that's kind of hard for me is there's a lot of people who have seen things, a lot of people, and it is kind of hard for me to discount everything with a humongo broad brush and just say, you all were crazy, literally everybody. I mean, this is partly what C.S. Lewis, when he was an atheist, that he said about all the Christians and all the different religious people. He basically was just it's hard to write off that many people. And I'm not saying that, I just because of that one fact, I believe in aliens or something, but it's something that when there's a lot of people saying something, you kind of need to pay a little bit of attention to it because it matters to a lot of people if there's a lot of people saying. And there's a lot of affidavits of people, sworn statements, of saying they saw stuff. So there's a lot of paranormal type activity. And even if it's not aliens per se, as we generally understand aliens, maybe it's spiritual, type of encounters and various things, not to tip the hand a little too much, but I do think that stuff is real. There are some real things that happen that are supernatural type occurrences. And maybe it's not all that. Maybe it is all that. Maybe it's people just had something for breakfast and they, that didn't sit well with them. They're just having some kind of trip or vision or something, who knows? But
now, would you separate that from a Star Trek type civilization that evolved on its own in a separate corner of the universe and developed warp speed and
yeah, so when you think of aliens, I guess that's what we typically think of is beings from either another planet or that are so dramatically different from humans and life on Earth as we know it that we would basically qualify them as aliens. I mean, how else would you guys put it?
But that's what I'm saying. There's a difference between an organism that evolved on its own, separate from us on its own planet and visited us versus something that's from a different.
Yeah,
that's
Martians
more
would be
a
an
supernatural
alien,
idea versus an extraterrestrial.
Yeah, and I think the reason I assume that that people took that comment he made, whether it was in context or not, and said, "Oh, rock your faith," is there's this idea of especially in America, this naturalistic evolution can explain everything, And if we found life happen on another planet that came here, that would shake a lot of people's faith, because it would kind of almost signal that, you know, life developed somewhere else. We must not be as special as the Bible says that we are special and unique and, you know, close to God's heart. What if he's got children on other corners of the galaxy?
They did.
Kind of thing?
One of the moments when one of the nuns was talking to her older nun, she was like, did God say that there could be aliens, or if there were, that would mean that we're not? There's something about how man is God's supreme creation. And then the older nun said, only on earth.
Yeah, right. It's like it's just
like there might be more
like
supreme creations, but on other planets. That was kind of one of the messages. And then they were like, they were closer to God. It was almost like it was a very
pretty subtle, or was it pretty overt?
It was relatively open, but I mean, you might have to think about the implications to some extent.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Jacob, you had a verse. Did you have Genesis? Who had Genesis 6:4? I assigned these previous to the podcast opening because it would help.
So the word Nephilim can also mean giant, as I read this.
Which some people think could be.
I mean, in Septuagint, it's translated as giants.
Okay.
The word is gigantes, giants. So in that day, the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also after, when the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. These were mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. So the word is just of an old age, and men of well-known renown. So very famous names and of old. Or giants of an old age and men of renown.
Yes, they are the children of the sons of God that
Sons of God.
with the women of earth.
So this would be like essentially half angelic, half human.
Yes.
Spawn, basically, I guess you could say, or something like that, which maybe we could consider in a popular sense like an alien type form, or a giant, or however you want to imagine that.
Pretty much every culture refers to them by a different name. The Anunnaki, I believe, are the exact same thing. It's referring to these things that came down and created, because that's the big thing with Anunnaki. I don't know how far you've dug into them. They're supposedly, if people that believe they are going to return, they are actually our creators. And they're going to show up, and that's where a lot of the deception is going to come for weak Christians, is this thing's going to come and say, your religions are all close, but let's point out the things that are wrong, because it was actually us, and like, here's where this was wrong, here's where this was wrong, and this is how a new religion gets ushered in.
And just as sort of a little bit of a high-level overview here, some people view the Nephilim as absolutely the interpretation in the Bible is they are angelic and human marriage creatures, essentially, like children of them, whereas a lot of people don't. So there's a division about that, and I personally don't buy the angelic, but I know that a lot of people do, and I don't want to discount that.
What do you think?
I don't think it's an angelic human relationship, I guess. I don't think that the verses bear that out. But could I defend that point very well in front of you right now? No, it's just my leanings.
I think a lot of that comes from, I think a lot of that does come from the Book of Enoch, as far as the explanation behind it, which, I mean, there's probably a lot we could go into on the Book of Enoch. I don't know as much about it as I could, but there's some interesting stuff in there. It's not, we don't, consider it scripture, but that doesn't mean it isn't old. And they were writing about something, so it's something to consider. But there's a lot of very interesting discussion on the Nephilim in there, and it to me it's very clear that they are not fully human.
There's something different going on, and maybe we should have Patrick read the verse in Jude if you've got it, because then we'll let you comment, because I think there is room for interpretation, and there's not a lot in the Bible. There's one from Genesis. We're going to have another one from Numbers. I think maybe Jacob, you had that one, and then there's a reference to the book of Enoch in the book of Jude. So even though Enoch is not scripture, it does get referenced. And Patrick will read that.
Yes, so this is Jude, verse 14. But Enoch, in the 7th generation from Adam, also prophesied about these men, saying, Behold, the Lord came with many thousands of his holy ones. 15, to execute judgment upon all, and to convict all the ungodly of all their ungodly deeds, which they have done in an ungodly way, and of all the harsh things which ungodly sinners have spoken against him. You want me to keep going?
If you want to, yeah, if it makes sense,
So
go ahead.
16 is, these are the grumblers, finding fault, following after their own lusts, and their mouth speaks arrogantly, flattering people for the sake of their own benefit.
Nice. Yeah. And I mean, it just makes a reference to that book of Enoch, which is.
Well, it's referencing Enoch, but there's one other place that I'm blanking on where it is. Enoch does get referenced somewhere else, and that's where a lot of people argue the credibility of the book of Enoch, that it is talked about in the canonical Bible.
And there's, for those who are sort of leaning towards the Nephilim being angelic beings, I think Dr. Michael Heiser is his name. Patrick, you'd be more familiar, but I know he's written some stuff, why he thinks. I personally don't. I think one of the people I'm pretty sure, I don't want to misquote him out of context, but I believe Jordan B. Cooper, he's a Lutheran guy, but I think he's had some stuff on why he doesn't think it's like just getting into the actual scriptural passages and saying why he doesn't think it's necessarily that. So just kind of high level, if you're curious to Google some names or go look for yourself afterward. Because, I mean, for me, a large part of the discussion of this is one, fun, and two, like we do really want to make sure that Christians feel secure in their faith, and like whether or not these are angelic, alien type beings, either just out there in general or through that are mentioned in the Bible, it shouldn't mess your faith up. Like you should not be so rocked by any kind of knowledge, that it's like going to shake your faith in Jesus. So
yeah, I think maybe this is jumping ahead a little bit, but I kind of fall more in the camp of angels and demons when it comes to things of this nature that are hard to explain, that don't really fit into our understanding of like physics and reality. And I think there's a lot of precedent for that. There's lots of demonic activity and angelic activity in the Bible. It's all over the place. We have some more newer sources on that too. We have two specific people who had encounters with angels of light who told them a lot of stuff, and that would be Muhammad and Joseph Smith. So there's a lot of testimony of people, encountering beings that are not human. And I think Protestants, shy away from the discussion behind angels and demons quite a lot. It's something that we just don't really want to think about. We're very shy when it comes to that, but I don't think you could just throw it out and say, oh, that doesn't happen anymore,
Yeah, like if you're on the side of, like on my side of it a little bit, where it's like, I don't think these things, there's a lot of credibility to a lot of this stuff. Like you should be challenged, I think, like to not judge the other side and say like, oh, they're bad Christians or they're, weak in faith if they don't agree with me on this topic, right? Like, vice versa, on the other side, I'm sure there's lessons to be learned where it's like, hey, maybe like don't call them normies on the other side, or don't think that they're just stuck in the mud or too naturalistic, in their thinking, right? We should be generous to both sides and kind of listen in. But I will say, as someone who thinks a lot of these are just largely either, I don't know, it's so hard to say, made up, because it's like there's so many accounts. I mean, even the more recent one, and maybe Patrick knows a little bit about this one, but the wheel that they saw in the sky, I think we mentioned it before the show, and I was trying to look it up, but there was this video footage, and I get it's like it's black and white, it's grainy. I think it's from a pilot. And they're seeing what looks like a wheel out of the book of Ezekiel that's mentioned in Ezekiel. Like
there's others that have looked up into the stars and zoomed in on stars that are doing that.
And the other thing too is
there's
like
several videos you can find.
Yeah, like in Ezekiel is a good example, or the book of Revelation. There's so many weird visions that people have, and so just to discount it all out of hand is hard to do, because the Bible's got some weird stuff in it too. So.
Well, and to Jacob's point with angels and demons being a strong probability, that's actually some of this disclosure that's happening is the direction it's getting pointed in. I mean, Congresswoman Anna Luna was on Joe Rogan talking about how she is hearing from, in her investigation, as she interviews all these pilots and high-level people, that these things are interdimensional. And that's why they appear and disappear, and why they seem to be able to do things that are outside of our understanding of physics.
Well, and the one we had talked about earlier in the week was like the Nimitz, right? And that was a USS, well, I think carrier.
That's where all this disclosure starts at. Yeah, USS Nimitz was a.
I don't know if it's an aircraft carrier or just a ship.
It is
but
an aircraft.
It's an aircraft carrier because they had
fighter jets
coming on and off, and they had was that the one with the crazy drop from the sky?
Yeah, the Tic Tac videos. These are the first videos that the government confirmed that these are real. Our pilots saw them. We don't know what they are. And you can find those videos pretty easily. I think they got released in 2011. There's 3 separate videos that occurred between, I think it's 2004, 2006, over the next like 5 years, where Navy pilots are seeing things and recording them on their jets that they can't explain. And that's where the government, this whole disclosure thing that's happening, that's where they start. It's been a real slow burn to what's happening now, which makes it seem it's very calculated. They've been slowly phasing this in, which is why I think a lot of this year has been like a hype thing that they've done. Like they told you we're putting out aliens.gov, but nothing's up there yet. It's just a blank website, but stuff's coming. And then they rolled that for a couple months. It was like, oh, we're investigating. We're going to tell you stuff. And now what they've rolled out is, well, this is all the stuff you already kind of knew about if you were looking into this over the last 20 years. But like, yeah, it's real.
Wasn't it the spoof though, where you went there and it was actually about like illegal aliens and not about like aliens, or was that something else? Oh, okay. So they did that too. Like I think there was a website that was about like illegal aliens and not about like aliens.
Like
but
they live among you. They're shopping at your store.
That was a thing that happened recently. The government basically just like did a head fake on everybody.
I think that was before the recent disclosure stuff, but it was funny.
It was funny.
funny.
I went there and the site was pretty hilarious, but yeah.
Yeah, they've been doing some real trolling with this administration. Whoever's running their social medias is having
they got some
lot of fun.
Millennial or Gen Z, people in there at the helm. I'm starting to get afraid because like the boomers are at the age right now where they're hitting like life expectancy. Like the majority of the boomers are right at life expectancy age. And so it's like in the next 10 years, basically a lot of government is going to transition from boomers who are in their 80s or 70s or 80s or 90s, some of them. I think Chuck Grassley, I'm pretty sure he's close to 90, if not in there. Or Nancy Pelosi, isn't she close? I mean, they're so old, some of these people. But like, yeah, it's gonna turn over and be like millennials. And as much as I've dogged on the boomers in a little bit of previous episodes, and I also love the boomers. My parents are boomers. Love you, mom and dad. But I will say I'm a little nervous for millennials and Gen Zers eventually to start taking some of the power. I mean, Gen X is such a small group, but there's some Gen Xers in there too.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, like the whole thing of just. There's a lot of things you would have to just discount out of hand. And I do think one of the things that's helpful about talking about some of this stuff, and I'm sure, Patrick, you have more examples too of like, or Barry or Jacob, like different weird things that people have seen or encountered. It just reminds me as someone who's an outside observer that, sometimes we live in America and you just think that what you see is what you get. Like the material world is all that exists. And these weird stories kind of help jog your memory in a way that sometimes you just don't have it jogged, that like there is a lot more going on below the surface, behind the scenes of what we consider to be the real, you know what I mean?
Well, and what I like with my show, like I've always gravitated towards stuff I can very heavily confirm. So a lot of stuff that either people, especially pre-internet and everything, where you have people on different continents all describing the exact same type of experience, those always brought a lot of credibility for me of how would this person on the other side of the world in 1945 know about the exact same thing and be taken by this, describe the same type of ship, the same type of alien race. There's no way for them to have known about each other. And then things where like you can go back to like the 70s where like there's police reports of officers experiencing stuff and there was no advantage to them coming out and saying, I saw a spaceship and I blacked out. And then it was hours later, I saw this bright light hovering above me and then I'm just out. Like stuff like that. And my research has always landed a lot of credibility because there's usually no advantage for them to have been saying something like that. Air Force pilots coming out after they retire saying about stuff that happened. Like there's no win for them. Like most of them weren't getting anything like monetarily from this. Like there's like, I saw this thing and I don't know how to explain it. but here's what I saw.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Jacob, do you have a thought on that?
And that's one of the reasons I think pilots see a ton of stuff that you really will never hear about. One of the reasons is because, especially if they're in the military or even commercial airline pilots, if they start talking about this stuff, they are going to not be able to fly anymore. They are going to be treated as insane, or they're hallucinating, and they're out of the air. They're done. Because I mean, it's high stakes when you're flying, a fighter jet, much less, a passenger airline. They really want to make sure those people are of right mind. But I think people are seeing things, right? And I think they are very much incentivized to keep their mouths shut. Not even just with like alien spaceships, but with lots of things that are unexplainable. I've found personally that if you talk to somebody long enough and you really build rapport and you ask them, they'll usually open up and tell you about something that they saw or something they experienced that just didn't make sense, something that they can't explain. I can't tell you how many times I've had someone, it's like, I'll tell them something and they'll say, oh, well, I had this happen one time. I'm like, oh. And, whether that is like aliens or demonic activity, angels, I don't know.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be Christians or people that believe in like God. A lot of people believe in spirits. I worked at a secular company in New York for a while, and like there was a person there that was convinced, thoroughly convinced that they're like, I don't know how old their kid was, but they slept in like a, like cradle type thing. And like, it's like that at night that their child was being visited, and they had like a cam or whatever. And they just like weird stuff would show up on the night cam with the kid and stuff like that. And, they just were like, this is strange. Like, and they weren't like, I think they were kind of spiritual, but not, weren't a believer or anything like that. And so it's just like, you just meet people that have all sorts of, paranormal stories.
Well, the Bible is very clear that there's another realm. I mean, it doesn't hide the fact that there's demons and angels. Like, if you believe the Bible, you believe in demons and angels. If you believe the whole thing, I mean, you have to. And that's slightly different, though, than aliens. I mean, there's a demarcation because one has biblical credence that it comes from the Word of God. The other one is a extraterrestrial thing that doesn't necessarily come from God. I mean, I'm much more willing to accept that these things are angels and demons versus they're beings that have no relation to the earth.
Yeah, I guess that's the idea, right? Is if they're aliens, like came about through like evolutionary process on like another planet, and they're so much more advanced than us, and we're like backwater religious people, basically.
Yeah, I think that's more of a socialist fairy tale. Like, like they like to give the story of the fairy tale of evolution. Like, oh, we're on our way to almost be as good as, these great beings that we can become on our own through evolution if we just work together and have empathy and love each other and live in community, reject the family, all these things. That's more what I would say.
Patrick, do you want to jump in?
At this point, I mean, in all the research I've done over the years, that's basically where I'm at. I don't rule out there might be something else happening, but by and large, this is demonic.
The bulk of it's demonic, basically.
The bulk of it is demonic. You can look it up, the Soul Stealers. So there's a large number of people over the last 50 years that have had abduction encounters where they've been taken up to these ships. They've been threatened to be cloned, and they've been threatened that their children will be replaced if they don't give up their soul. There's this race of aliens, or whatever you want to call them, that seem very interested in the human soul. And that one really caught my attention because if you were a fallen angel who's been kicked out with no recourse, but you have thousands of years to try and figure something out, because at the end of it, you still kind of think you can outsmart God in some way. So there's a back door. A soul is the thing that gets you around all this. So if you could find a way to get a hold of human souls and to somehow take that in, you could maybe somehow find a way to get this forgiveness that human souls get. So there's a lot of stories about that, as well as a lot of abduction experiences end at the name of Jesus. Like, this is something I've researched pretty recently that I started hearing and really went down the rabbit hole on it, where there's hundreds of UFO abduction experiences where these things grab them or show up in their room and they're terrified. They speak the name of Jesus and these things just disappear. And the UFO community has kind of shied away from this because it doesn't fit the narrative. A lot of UFO researchers, I will say they're all atheists. A fair amount of them want there to be something else. And so these stories don't really fit their narrative, so it doesn't get as much attention. But there's hundreds of documented, like people talking about like, yeah, I got tormented by this thing sometimes multiple times. And then I was so freaked out one time, I said the name of Jesus or I got saved. And then it stopped happening. They stopped showing up. That experience stopped. I've not seen them since. Like, there's a lot of stories like that that haven't been covered by traditional UFO researchers.
That makes a lot of sense to me because, like, you know, I know you've looked into this a lot more than the rest of us, Patrick, over the years, just all the crazy stories and different things. And like to hear that there's, at least from what you've experienced, some kind of connection with the spiritual, you know, and oftentimes on the demonic side.
Yes.
Some of that just seems to click for me. But again, it's a little bit of my bias here. That's kind of what I believe in general.
The stories that I've heard of these encounters, and I'm limited knowledge, but the stories I've heard of these encounters, they're almost always like negative. And when they are positive, the message that is coming from these beings is very much a universalist kind of message.
We're all going to get to heaven.
Yeah,
kind of
it's
thing.
like you need to be good, you need to love everyone, and you know, no matter what your religion is, you just have to be this, and because we're all on this planet, we just have to preserve the planet. It's always this message that sounds good on the surface,
Socialist.
and then it just it's socialist. It just leaves God out of the equation.
You
And
also pointed out those other ones that all the false religions come from these. Muhammad, Joseph Smith, even Seventh-day Adventists, Jehovah's Witnesses, all angelic revelations.
So I mean, I don't think that's a coincidence that those those are the origin stories for that. I do want to ask you, Patrick, are you familiar with Chris Bledsoe?
That name sounds familiar, but I'm drawing a blank right now.
What's the name?
Chris Bledsoe.
Bledsoe?
So he did the podcast circuit. This one's interesting because he's just this random redneck guy out in the middle of nowhere who somehow gets attention from all these people at NASA and the CIA and all these different people that come out there to see him. But he apparently had an encounter when he was young out fishing where he basically disappeared for 6 hours or something and reappeared. His friends couldn't find him. I think he claims that he got abducted. He also claims to be a Christian, and he's
UFO of God is the book he wrote.
Oh yeah. And he's the one who claims to be able to pray and call out and have these orbs kind of manifest or just show up in the sky. And he's
involved with a lot of their new research that's happening now because they're calling down these orbs now.
Yeah, and so that's the weird part to me is that there's a lot of people from the government that are showing a lot of interest in him and like coming out to his house to meet him and hang out with him. And his opinion on this is that these are angels. They're just angels. So that's, I think, I don't know. They could still be demons.
What are demons? Are demons?
I mean, they're fallen angels, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think demons also they try to use positive imagery or positive things to trick people.
Well, like what we said, Muhammad, Joseph Smith, Ellen White.
I mean, what's, I can't remember the quote. I think the Apostle Paul said, you know, if anyone, even me or an angel of light comes to you and
Galatians 2, if me or an angel from heaven preach any other gospel.
Yeah. And like, why would an angel from heaven preach any other gospel? I don't think an angel from heaven would, but I think maybe a fallen angel would, you know? And the angel of light that's referred to in kind of a negative sense in the Bible, you know?
Isn't that kind of how Islam started? Was like visions of like an angelic type being showing up and stuff like that?
Yeah. I mean,
angel of light sort of thing?
I'm skeptical of Islam. Very much so, but I'm honestly prone to believe that Muhammad did in fact meet some angelic being.
An illiterate prophet able to write, or not write, but able to give all of that information is pretty...
I think that there was something supernatural that happened there, but I don't think that was an angel. I think that was a demon, a demonic encounter. And that's, like we kind of already said, we've seen a lot of cases of that, a lot of people's experiences. I can't ignore it. I can't just like flat out say, oh, that's just crazy. Cause like, you know,
it's hard to discount it all. One of the questions, I don't know if you want to jump in before I kind of shift the conversation, Patrick, at all, but one of the things I was thinking about was the there was that Angel Studios movie. Do you guys remember this one that came out? It was like near-death experiences. Brogan's also in-house here, but I didn't say his name in the beginning. He may jump
He's
in and
audience
give a comment
member.
here. And I'll force him to give a comment on aliens because I know he wants to. But I don't know if you saw that one either. There was like, it was basically about near-death experiences, and there were people see stuff and would learn things while they're dead, like legally dead, that they couldn't have known otherwise. And they would say things like one person passed away, was, declared dead in the chair while people are operating on him or her. And what they described was their soul left the body, floated up above the ceiling. And then they were looking down at themselves through the ceiling fan, like the top side of the ceiling fan, essentially watching the operation and watching them be declared dead, basically. But they said that's crazy afterward, that because they shocked and eventually brought this person back, and they saw like a red sticker on the top of the ceiling fan that you couldn't have seen unless you like had been up there previously. And like they described the sticker in like detail and like whatever. They said like that. Also like how in the world, and they described parts of the conversation that happened while they were dead. So it was like weird things like that you're just like, how does that happen?
Well, they're essentially astral projecting. Are you familiar with astral projecting?
Well, yes, I'm familiar with the concept. Yes.
It's a real thing. It's definitely a real thing.
Your soul like separates and leaves your body
Yes.
and comes back. I mean, Paul talks about being caught up to the third heaven. Who knows what that was, right? I mean,
there's government declassified documents where they've done it successfully. They've astral projected into other parts of the world. They'll have two teams, one in one room, one in another room across the country, other side of the world, and they'll be able to read the piece of paper that's there. They'll be able to tell them what the person's wearing. It's a real thing. You can actually... So in my research, in a more wayward time in my life, I have actually done this. It is very
you've
much
tried
possible. Yeah, you can do
Okay.
it with what's called binomial beats, which is where
maybe you should
playing-
give the warning before, plugging it here. Do not do this at
Don't
home.
do. I don't think it's a good. Once I tell you the story, I think you'll understand
Okay.
it's probably not a good idea. So when I personally decided to experiment with it, because I was curious, does this really work? Basically, it's two different frequencies. You play one side in one ear and one in the other, and it's supposed to basically sync up your brain. So the time that I actually tried to do this, I did it. I felt myself start to rise above my body. Like it felt like I was floating upward. And in my house, I was home alone. And as I started to do it, I heard rapid footsteps come down the hallway in my house. Like something was running towards me as this was happening.
You're
And I'd
freaking
sink
me
back
out.
down. It freaked me out. I'd sink back down. I'd get up. I'd look around. There's nobody there. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to try it again. Did it again. Footsteps closer this time, running down the hallway towards me. It's like there was something other dimensional that was near me that saw my body getting ready to be vacant. Like my soul was leaving.
Bro, you're freaking me out already.
It,
Jeez.
it honestly, it gives me goosebumps every time I tell the story.
Oh my
I've never
gosh.
tried it since. The more I've like researched what's happening there, as a Christian, I don't think that there's anything that could have happened necessarily to my body, but some people believe that this is how people get possessed because you've actually vacated your body and other things now have access to it in a way that they may not have had access to it before.
Would you
Yeah, this all sounds bad.
Would you say, because that almost kind of sounds similar to a lot of the stories I've heard of people on, LSD, high dose LSD or like ayahuasca or ibogaine, where they have these almost like
Out of body
hyper
experience.
realistic out of body experiences. They describe being transported to a different realm and
Never done ayahuasca, so I can't speak to that one. You don't necessarily get that experience on acid, though.
okay.
As somebody who has done that in my younger days, you don't leave.
Okay.
Like, the world changes around you, but, like, I never left, and I've done a lot.
Okay.
Never left, though. Ayahuasca seems to be a completely different thing. That's actually something that the further they go into it, that's something that's actually coming out right now, is they're wanting to classify the beings that people see as a real thing, because everybody that does ayahuasca, or which is really DMT, they all experience the exact same thing. They all encounter the same beings. They describe them the exact same way, to where I don't know if they physically leave their body or if they're going to another plane, but everybody has the same experience, and I do believe they are meeting something there. I don't think it's angelic, but they are meeting something there, because that seems to be a gateway. All that thing seems to, like, you only use a small percentage of your brain. Like, there's a lot of stuff up there you're not using and you're not connected that I think could connect you to other dimensions. And I think that's what a lot of that stuff does. And it opens you up to, I think it gives the possibility of a lot of demonic things happening that we're not meant to experience.
Yeah, I think people get taken in sometimes they just think, oh, this is kind of interesting or cool or whatever. And then they dabble. And that's probably a very, very bad idea. It is a very bad idea. And don't dabble. Like, I'm being your father here on the podcast for a second, but don't dabble in this stuff. It's not good.
You're opening and closing doors in your brain.
Yeah. It's super common, calling out the ladies here. Women especially are very prone to falling into this kind of spiritualism stuff. They start messing around with, tarot cards and all this kind of stuff, which I don't know if they truly think it's just, it's cool, it's fun, or if they think it is some kind of spiritual thing that they're doing. But I think those things can be very problematic. I think I'm not going to be ignorant and say like, oh, none of that stuff has any power, but I do think that there are things that you can do that can open you up, like Patrick was saying, can open you up to demonic influence. And I think you can bite off a lot more than you can chew.
Well, it's witchcraft.
Yeah, it's
You're playing with
witchcraft.
Well, I mean, yeah, and the thing is, what you said earlier, Jacob, is kind of ringing true to me, that everybody's you'd be surprised who you talk to that has a paranormal story, or people who know about people who've had paranormal stories. Like, I mean, I remember when I was working in tech in New York, there was a guy in the office who said he was a wizard. And I know it sounds kind of funny when you say it like that. He didn't say like witch, then it would be like, ooh, bad. But like wizard is kind of like, oh, interesting. And he would wear like wizard robes into work. Like, it was funny kind of. And he was a really, really nice guy. It wasn't like he had like white hair, and he was fairly young. He's probably, I don't know, 30s or maybe 40s. It was just interesting. But then he also said, oh, I'm like a trained hypnotist or whatever. And like one day he's like, do you want to be hypnotized? And I said no. And I'm glad I said no. And they would have, company events. This was a big company. So they would have these big company events, and they would have like tarot card readers that would come into these events and stuff. And, it was like one of those things where you're just there, you're part of this culture, this environment, and it's like you're getting all this pressure to like, it's not even like that
What are
overt.
tarot cards?
Oh, I mean, you guys probably know better than me, but they read your future through these cards,
Yeah, they
is
draw
my understanding.
cards. They lay them out in front of you each. I think it's like groups of 3 or 6 or something like that. And each one means that each card has a meaning to it that then predicts something about your future.
Well, and there's,
Yeah.
it's just, anyways, I know we've gotten a little bit off aliens, but all this stuff is kind of, to me, it's related. I think we all would agree as Christians, like the spiritual realm exists. And so when you're talking about aliens, you're kind of talking about anything could be considered paranormal as well, potentially. Yeah. I mean, maybe there's aliens out there in the strict sense. I don't know if any of you guys have answered that one.
Do you think there's a huge difference between those two categories, in my opinion?
Yeah, I would say, maybe I'm speaking for everybody, out of turn, but I would say most of us probably would agree that it would fall on the demonic side of things, not necessarily like a...
Well, I think Patrick said that, but do any of you guys think aliens, like the traditional sense of alien that's like created either on another planet or whatever, are real?
Like travel the speed of light and
there's another society that's more technologically advanced than us out there.
I do think it's interesting that God created such a vast universe and that we would be the only inhabited planet. That's interesting, but I don't know if it means that there's other parallels. I don't know. That's just an interesting idea.
I mean, to me, I do think... maybe to give the devil his due a little bit here. It's like if there were another planet on a related solar system and life formed there, maybe I'm just going on a limb saying I would have to look. I wouldn't shake my faith, but it would be interesting. It'd be like maybe evolution has some more merit than I thought. Maybe God created things differently, which I'm not currently a proponent of macro evolution, but maybe that, I'm not trying to judge if you are or anything, but like, maybe it would give me pause, right? Because one of the arguments for the existence of God, and at least the Christian, maybe not the Christian God, but just God in general, is that there's a fine tuning to the universe that's led to life being created here on this planet as a unique occurrence where everything came together in such a perfect way. And I do think that argument would be weakened a little bit if we just found randomly life on some like aliens with consciousness on another planet.
What if it was just dogs? Like it was just like the same like life that you'd find,
or like algae or something.
Yeah,
I mean, if it's algae, I'd be like, okay, I don't know.
Like I'm thinking like mammals.
But even that,
it'd be interesting. But
even algae on another planet,
but they wouldn't have souls. I mean, the same way as humans.
I would say the existence of like bacteria or microbes on another planet, that's not out of the realm of possibility. I feel like they
because
found something.
All creation, the purpose of all creation is in this world is to some extent for us.
Well, but there
even
could
microbes,
be
even
there
algae,
could be some
what would be
important
that purpose of those life in those other places.
I don't know, Barry. It could be all part of the fine tuning of the universe.
You don't know. Thing that I don't know.
I mean, think about the butterfly effect, right?
I'm doubtful to think even algae life.
But the only reason why that would be, that's something that that more of the secular side of science is trying to find. They really want to find something. They just want to find like a little microbe. They want to find something that's alive.
Well, if they do that,
because
gives them the higher.
Well, I don't think it does. No, I think it only does if you believe in the macroevolution, because then they'll say, well, because this stuff is here, that means eventually in 35 billion years, it's going to turn into people. It could turn into people.
Let's get Patrick in on this, and then I'm going to get Brogan in on my mic here in a second if he wants to weigh in. If he doesn't, no worries. But
I mean, so to think about that there's other things. I mean, the Bible talks about that there's other things. There's other heavenly beings that we think of. Cherubim aren't what we think they are. Like, there's the wheels inside of wheels. That's another thing. Like, the Bible lists of several different things that do have specific roles, but some of them are just kind of described as a thing that exists.
Angels is kind of a catch-all term for any spiritual beings, and there's different classes, I think.
I mean, the word is just messenger in Greek.
Right. But I mean, you said one, cherubim are different, I think, slightly.
Yeah. What did the heavenly host? I was reading Luke 2, and it talked about the heavenly host. I don't know if that's angels.
It's kind of interesting because, right, if God made the animal kingdom, which is so diverse and unique, and I guess, humans are unique amongst that, obviously, but, if the angelic world it seems like there's a lot of uniqueness and variety, even amongst the scripture, although it's not mentioned as, I don't think angels are mentioned too much. Like they're definitely there. I mean, they're there in the gospel accounts. They're God's messengers. They're there in Hebrews mentions angels.
Well, did you know? Okay, so every experience in the Bible documents of somebody encountering an alien, where they go, "Be not afraid." Do you know what that actually means in the original language? It means stop screaming.
Okay, I didn't know
That's
that.
how they start every.
I'll take your word for it. That's
every interactions with humans going, "Hey, stop screaming. It's okay." It's not be not afraid. It's stop screaming.
We'll get Barry, our resident expert, to check it. Yeah, we'll get Barry to check.
Yeah, I don't know the Old Testament.
Okay, interesting.
I don't know the Hebrew.
Yeah, we'll get Barry to hold his mic to his face so we can actually hear him.
Mephobeste, though, is what Jesus says.
Yeah, we got Barry with a dynamic range.
Mephobeste, which is do not fear, but that's what Jesus says in the New Testament.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
No, but when they're experiencing them in the Old Testament, it's literally stop screaming.
I can see that. It probably means quiet or whatever it is. Don't make noise or something.
Because they're seeing a wheel inside a wheel or something with a bunch of eyeballs on it. They're not seeing a humanoid with wings. They're seeing this weird thing that they have no basis of comparison for, and they're literally terrified.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Isaiah 6 is what I was thinking, where he does fall and he's terrified.
I mean, even the stuff there's just a lot of interesting things in the Bible, like Isaiah. That wasn't the angel that brings him a hot coal and touches
the seraphim flew to him with the
seraphim.
Yeah, seraphim was another one.
Yeah.
So maybe a little bit of a derail. We're just kind of moving back towards the.
We're all over the place today.
The alien topic. One of my theories, and I don't know if anybody here shares this, is that this whole effort, this disclosure effort, I think they are kind of priming us for something, and I think it is likely that it is a an elaborate plan to try and get people to give up their faith.
I thought you were going to say freedom, but freedom and
well,
faith, probably.
freedom and faith,
I was thinking
but
freedom mostly.
They're combined.
It seems to me, and honestly, maybe the government is in contact with demons, and the demons have tricked them and told them, "Hey, we're aliens, actually." Or whatever the types they've described, the Nordics, the Greys.
I think when it gets high enough, they know what they're dealing with.
Probably, yeah. But
there's a lot of useful idiots in the government is kind of the idea, below people who maybe know what's going on.
Pedophiles
That's
who are
true.
doing blood rituals.
Yeah, we
to the
did,
point where we know that it's happening and nothing's being done about it.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about it, Patrick, because I mean, to me, I'm like, we did cover the Epstein files on, I don't know what number of podcasts it was, but it's probably 20 episodes back now. But
when the docs were released.
Yeah, when the docs were released earlier this year, 2026. But there's a lot there of the government is it certainly, if they are not directly involved, it sure looks like they have, they have spells, or they have like things that they have literally like sacrifices, and it looks like Old Testament, sacrificials type system in some regards.
Yeah, they're serving Moloch.
Yeah, and they named their bank accounts after demons from the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Like they named one of the bank accounts Baal, I'm pretty sure, and they were sending money to it.
Yes.
It's like, that's crazy.
That's
like,
more
who
of-
does that? Like either satanic involved people, or people that are like going for like a high school like good laugh, a junior high laugh, where it's like, we'll name the bank account Baal. But even that, I'm just like, there's no way these people were just having a good old junior high laugh. Like, you know what I mean?
No.
Like, there's no way.
It's more of them disclosing it to you.
Yeah, and some of it's so overt too.
Because that makes it okay. That's how they actually justify what they're doing.
I guess to answer Jacob's sort of point was, in general, was like, I do kind of feel like it's sort of more about taking freedom. The government's always looking for ways to take your freedom and give themselves more power and control over you. That's basically whether it's malicious or it's just the way government operates, and you could say it's not really like bunch of people behind closed doors smoking, cigars or whatever, going, how can we take Jacob's freedom? Maybe it's not that, but
it would seem to me that they, pardon the pun, but it seems to me that they're wanting to play a trump card to totally shake up everybody's beliefs, everybody's reality, and to try and align the populace towards one thing, one common goal, one higher power.
One world government.
Well, yeah, that one follows. But it's like I think they do really want everyone to kind of be in line and subservient to them. And there's a lot of talk about this in the past. I haven't done a ton of research on it. I don't know if you have, but Project Bluebeam, that's something that's been talked about.
They can roll that out anytime they want. They can paint it in the sky right now. They're showing you they can do it. They do it with fun shows right now with drones and stuff, but they've had that technology for 50 years.
Yeah, so
Can you explain to me and Brogan what Project Bluebeam is?
Yeah, me too. I've heard it.
So it's basically able to, through like laser lights and stuff, be able to make things look like they're happening in the sky. You could make an alien spacecraft appear, or I could make your God appear, and I could use elf waves, ultra low frequency, to make you hear your God in your head. And it's all documented. There's patents on it. It's been around for a long time where they can do all this stuff. And more, it looks like, with the recent scientists that have been disappearing and everything, one of them right before they died claimed she was getting hit by elf waves and stuff. Like, there's been a lot of that.
You said elf waves?
Yes. Extra low frequency.
Ultra
low frequency? Extra low frequency. If I remember correctly, what it
sounds like
for.
something out of the Santa Claus. They're deploying the ELFS here.
They've had this technology around for a really long time, for like projecting images and also transmitting sounds in non-traditional ways. That's been around for a long time, and that's kind of where the conspiracy,
Venezuelan sound.
Yeah, that's kind of where the conspiracy, I'm doing air quotes, came from.
The patents exist.
Yeah, the patents exist. So they're trying something. And now, fast forward however many years in the future, we are at a point where we have unprecedented technological advances. A lot of stuff that we don't even know about. And that just so happens to coincide with the government teasing a big disclosure about aliens. To me, that just sounds, they couldn't write a better script.
And a movie called Disclosure Day.
Disclosure Day. Yeah. So That's my fear, is that there is an elaborate plan for in this. I hope this is not what's happening, but it's kind of looking more like that day after day. I think there's an elaborate plan to basically sell the narrative that we're not special, we're not created by God, we're not unique. There's this other class of beings that are above us that know better than us, and we need to listen to them. And I think if the average person, and probably a lot of people who are pretty intelligent too, went outside and saw this thing and they heard these voices and they see it, they can feel it, I think they would totally abandon everything that they believe. It would be hard for me too.
Now, the Catholics said this when Galileo came out, and he said, look, the Bible might be speaking allegorically when it says that the earth was on a foundation that doesn't move. Galileo came out and said that, and then the Catholics said, if you come out and you say this, you're going to shake everyone's faith. They're going to lose the Bible. We're not going to let you say that you're a heretic if you claim that the earth moves in the sky. So what's the difference?
So I don't believe that. I obviously don't believe that the government or the cabal that's leading everything, whoever it is, I don't believe there's anything they can do to win, to beat Christ, right? They can't beat Christ. He's already won.
But they could deceive the elect if it was possible.
They can deceive. They can deceive whole generations of people. I think they can cause a lot of issues.
Do you
that
think
will
the
be
devil actually
long-lasting.
believes he's going to be defeated?
Oh yeah, he already has been. He knows he's been defeated.
But he thought he won when Christ was
He knows
crucified.
he's been defeated because he saw Christ rise. But knowing that you've lost makes you want to fight even harder because you're so desperate.
Well, he thought he could overthrow God at the beginning. Like, I don't think that gumption he had ever went away. I think he's still trying to figure out a way back to the soul stealers that are trying to get human soul. Like, I think they're looking for a loophole.
Think about if you're fighting a war and you're gonna die, you might as well just go out and do as much damage as you can because you're dead anyway. You might as well try to go 1 versus 100 and
It's like the
see how much damage you can get.
like the mutually assured destruction, the nuclear
Take as much as
apocalypse
you can.
scenario.
You're so angry, you've lost.
It's like, hey, we got nukes coming in. We might as well launch all the silos.
Let's delay it as
Yeah.
much. Let's hurt it. Gets to as much damage as possible. While I'm still here, just full of chaos. I mean, I don't think he has organized ideas. Just chaos and destruction.
I think it
as
would
much
be.
as possible.
I think he could have organized ideas. I think.
Well, yeah,
I think
that
he
was
has
a little
some pretty.
But you're right about that. I mean, I guess
Yeah.
there is some level of that.
But I think regardless, if he knows that he's defeated or if he doesn't know that he's defeated, I don't think it changes anything because I think he's always prowling, right? He's always attacking people. He is constantly combating us, and spiritual warfare is a very real thing. It's something that we don't think enough about, and I think we need to be more mindful of it because it's real, and I feel like it can really sneak up on people.
Well, if he doesn't think he can change the outcome, why would he go ahead and go through with the Antichrist and everything that happens in Revelation? He thinks there's a chance he can make this work.
We got bad news for you.
What's the bad news?
The bad news is that a lot of that stuff. Well, it depends on what you mean. I personally think that a lot of that stuff from Revelation already happened. Not the final coming, but a lot of the signifying of the destruction, the tribulation happened in the destruction of Jerusalem.
I think that happened in 70 AD.
Not the return of Christ, but the destruction, the false prophets, the coming and judgment of the Lord on clouds came, the shaking of the earth when the powers of the empire were collapsing.
So do you think the timeline has been changed? Do you think we have missing history?
No.
Are you in that camp?
No, I think
like 500 or 1,000 years has
I
been
think
deleted?
that Revelation was a specific prophecy to the people in that generation.
Okay.
Telling them that there was going to be a traumatic event about to happen. Get out of Jerusalem, flee to the hills. When you see the mountains, when you see the city surrounded by armies, flee to the hills, get out of there. All this stuff's going to happen. So I think that already happened. That was a judgment on the Jews for their rejection of their Savior.
All right. I'm reining the conversation back in because we're getting into eschatology, and this is a big old thing. And yes, some of those prophecies may have been for AD 70, and some of them may be for the future. But we're gonna have to have Patrick back.
The final coming back.
I
of
would
Christ.
like to be a part of that
I
conversation.
think you would enjoy that.
I would like a little bit of time to prepare a little bit.
Oh,
more,
I know.
But I do need to say,
bit
Kyle,
of time.
I do not believe the final return of Christ happened in in 70 AD.
Oh, thank God for that.
Well,
Okay.
obviously.
I'm glad
But
we
there
didn't
are
miss.
people that, well, you have to clarify because there's some people that lump it all together and who do believe that the final
Yeah.
return happened there with everything else.
What is that called?
It's called preterism.
That's full preterism.
Yeah, full preterism.
Okay,
Yeah.
I know a little bit about that.
Yeah, some people say that, and I would make a hard distinction on that, and I just have to clarify that last piece.
All right. Well, you got your little snippet of a preview of eschatology debate amongst
I
Reformed
really
guy,
would like to
which
be a
is
part of that
promised
episode.
as far back as maybe, I don't know,
Episode 1.
episode 3
Yeah, we
or
were
2
talking
or
about-
3 when
we were talking
Barry,
about
For the,
eschatology.
all
Barry
that discourse.
challenged me to some eschatology debate because I lean towards the amillennial camp, but we're not getting into that right now.
Why does Satan still fight if he's lost?
Yeah. well.
Because he's desperate. Is
Let's
how I would answer that.
All right. So what have we missed so far? Maybe I should. I don't know if Brogan wants me to bring him in here, but I feel like we need a new voice, quickly on the pod. So what do you think so far, Brogan? Has the conversation gone well? Who's in the right? Of course, me. But I mean, but I just wanted you to confirm that for the rest of the
There's
podcast.
a flag on the play there.
As Brogan having the final say and who's right and wrong is definitely not Kyle.
That
No, I
hurts.
mean, I feel like I'm just sitting back and learning a lot. I did have a few small stories as far as when we're talking about the whole astral projection and those kind of things. And I think it's interesting because you always hear stories of like a person knows a person, those kind of things. And it's always crazy because there's too many things I feel like to totally discount it, but it always sounds a little crazy. But I just also have multiple stories of either people I know or people that I know that know someone. And one was someone I'm very close with that is a teacher met someone at their school that he disappeared from his room for like 6 hours. His parents couldn't find him. They called the cops. No one could find him. And then all of a sudden he reappears. And his parents are like mad at him and thinks that, he just ran off or something and no one believes him. And he tells the person I know about this. And again, this could just be some kid making up a story, but it's one of those things that just sound like it'd be pretty weird and dramatic for someone as young as him to make up and just like kind of just go on a story. It's just like some like crazy weird things of like what, how does that happen? Or I don't know. They sound crazy.
Where did he go?
I don't remember because it's been a while since I've heard this, but I do remember that he traveled somewhere and could like see the things. He could see like the cops. He could see his parents and those kind of things. And I think he went somewhere, but I don't remember where. So that makes this story a little bit harder to try to actually confirm or anything. But it's just very weird stuff like that. There's like other little random stories. I don't know. There's like I'm trying to think of all the different ones. My wife had a story of when she was actually out in California with her grandparents, but she was sitting out late one night on the front porch by herself, or it was like she was sitting on the roof. Actually, she had crawled out on the roof, and all of a sudden she was surrounded in a little like ball of like light, not a ball, like someone shone like a flashlight down on her, and she like freaked out, went inside, and was like woke her brother up to try to like figure out if he had done it, and he hadn't. Just like weird things like that of like no one's out there. They lived in the middle of nowhere in the country. She was out on the roof and didn't see anything. Just like random, just such random like weird things of like. I feel like everyone has some sort of story like this, and it's just always crazy to me. Even this one, I don't even know. Like, it's kind of lame in a sense, but I remember there was one morning that me and my brother both talked about it. But we were going to coffee with our brothers, and as we're driving on the road, we could see like the moon was up just in the middle of the sky, like one of those like big like harvest moons that was huge and like beautiful. And I remember I was driving. And I looked up and saw it, and I was like, "Oh, that's like." Just thought to myself, like it looks beautiful. And then I like obviously watching the road as I'm driving. And I look up again, and it's just gone. There's no moon, which sounds stupid. Like I was just like, did it go behind clouds? There was like some clouds in the sky, but like basically none. It was almost a clear like early morning. It was very early, like 4 or 5 a.m. And my brother was in front of me, and we both stopped at Quick Trip that morning. And I like didn't say anything, and then he comes up to me and goes, "Dude, the moon disappeared." And I was like, "You saw it too?" Like I was like, I thought I was crazy. And neither of us have like any, it was just like the most random thing. And it's also like stupid because it's the moon, but it was just like randomly somehow the moon disappeared. And within like probably 5-10 seconds of me, like I saw it and like was just watching the road for a few seconds, looked back up and there was no moon, and I have no way to like, it just sounds so weird to me because I'm like, I have no way to say how I didn't see it, and it could be that somehow I just missed it, but it's like it was right in front of me, just like weird stuff like that. Anyways, I don't necessarily have any point to these stories besides I would just maybe think of those.
I wanted to comment on that because that's really fascinating, because a lot of people do have interesting stories and different things that like hard to explain type things. And one of the things I did want to ask the rest of the podcast here was like, how do we separate legitimate accounts of angelic visitation from illegitimate ones? Like, because the Bible has accounts of angels visiting people and we believe in those. And then we also have like, there's many, many, many examples of Catholics claiming, for example, and that Catholics catch strays on the Reform or Die podcast. So,
Rightfully
it's not a shock that I am. sorry to our Catholic audience. We love you. But like that, I don't know that Mary visited this small child in, Uganda or something like that and said like, here's a glass of milk or something. I'm just making that up. But like there are many Marian visitations that they claim are legitimate. How do we separate like legitimate, visions and stories from the ones that aren't? And Patrick, you look like you're ready to answer.
Knowing the Bible.
What's that?
If it contradicts the word, you're not dealing with an angel.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
Or
pretty
would you
easy.
say that they are real, but they're maybe demonic in some
it's real.
cases?
Yeah.
Or maybe they're just real, some of these extra biblical
They're
accounts.
not seeing Mary.
Okay, you think it's something else?
Well, can you biblically back up that Mary's anywhere but heaven at this point? That's
I can't personally know, but
Yeah.
I'm not a
honestly
Catholic.
the only ones
so.
you could argue from the Bible that may possibly be able to make an appearance are Enoch and Elijah.
Well, you know why they argue Mary? Because they believe Mary was assumed with them. She also, they would say, didn't die. She was assumed into heaven because she was sinless.
But
because she was sinless, they would say that she didn't die. That's how they get away with that. But
I do know that's how the argument there. There's no.
But agreed, yeah.
That's a lot of
against-
arguments that are hard to prove on top of each other.
Well, the proof is that she
Yeah.
sinned, like every single
Yeah.
one of us.
Like her son said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she was said,
Everyone
"No,
says-
my savior" and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, I hate to make the Catholics mad. I know we do have some Catholic listeners, but I would lean on the side of it's very possible those people did see something that claimed to be Mary.
But it's hard to write off all. I mean, again, there are a lot of these. I'm not arguing for. I'll leave the Catholics to do that, and I would encourage people, if you're interested to go look at some of these, feel free to go look. But yeah, I don't generally think Mary is making visitations. I'm trying to think. The only examples that I would try to give the Catholics their due, since we don't have any Catholics here in the group, but they would say Moses and Elijah appeared on the Mount of Transfiguration with Jesus. So that's an example of an appearance, I guess you could say. So there's that. I'm just trying to give them their.
Kyle, if Mary was
Their
sinless
side.
and she assumed into heaven, then I would say that she probably could appear to people. So if you agree with those two things, that she was sinless and assumed into heaven and didn't die, then I would say it would make sense that she could probably appear to people.
Well, I mean, a lot of people just think maybe they've talked to or seen their father or whatever after they've passed on. Some people have those accounts. Like, are those crazy? Are those demonic? Or how would you classify? Are those aliens?
Aliens.
Spoofing you basically? Or,
When I was a little kid at my great grandpa's funeral, I met someone and told him some stories, and he told me some stories. I went back to tell to my mom, and she was like, apparently it was the same grandpa, like the stuff he had told me and whatnot. I was like 4 or 5 at that time. I kind of remember it, but I have no idea what that was about. It's super weird.
There is the theory on. So this is probably going to be a weird. I don't know if you guys have heard this theory. So with Moses and Elijah during the Transfiguration, there is a theory that that's actually outside of time. And that when Jesus is standing there talking to Moses, he's also on Mount Sinai. That's all the same interaction. They're seeing that all happen at once.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever heard that.
I have heard that.
I've heard that, and it's kind of compelling to me. It's super cool. The thought that
It
they
gets
all
points for
came
being
up
very cool.
They all came
Yes.
up onto the mountain in different points, like in history, and then like outside of time they met all at the same time. I think that's really cool. And it's totally within the realm of possibility, because God and everything. He's outside of time. He's capable of that. So I think it's very neat.
There are interesting things that happen in the Bible that are, like Paul being caught up to the third heaven and no one really knows what that fully means, or people having dreams or visions. I mean, I don't know. I'm not the most charismatic type, but there are people that say they have dreams from God and visions from God. I personally have not really had that to my knowledge.
Well, that's been a big thing in the Muslim community over the last 10 years or so. Is that's why we're seeing people aren't talking about mainstream and all that isn't talking about, which there's a big exodus from Islam to Christianity, and a lot of those people say they had dreams and visions of Jesus coming to them, and that's why they converted.
Those are the easiest ones for me to confirm in my mind as real, because they're not disagreeing with the scriptures, and they're literally just telling the person who Jesus is, and they become saved and they go find an underground church basically in the area, which is wild. I mean, if you are a materialistic, like a naturalist atheist, those are hard stories, I think, to wrap your head around. Like someone who's never heard the name of Jesus, and they live in a, I guess you could say maybe they've heard the name of Jesus in an Islamic culture, but not in a sense of like him being savior or, something like that. And it's like, Jesus appears in a dream to them and saves them. It's like, wow, that's great. I mean, that's pretty wild to me.
Well, they confirm him as they believe. I mean, Islam teaches that he's a prophet and from God, but he's not God. They have a distorted view of who Jesus is.
Yeah. I like those. Those are very compelling stories for me too. I don't see a reason to like try and dispute them, especially when you see like a mass exodus of people leaving Islam and coming to Christ because they had dreams. I think I'm like, okay, praise God. Amen.
So there's stories. William Clark talked about stories of Native Americans coming from the West to meet him in St. Louis and asking questions about God, the God child that they'd heard about or seen, had some kind of vision and wanted to learn more about him. And so they traveled the country and ran into him and wanted to learn about Christianity. I don't know the verified details of that. I was trying to look it up, but
interesting.
It seems like it's documented that he ran into tribes that were asking him about Christianity.
So I do have an off-the-wall question that I want to ask Patrick about.
Okay,
it's more in
we're
line
at
with
that
the
time
alien.
of the episode.
Yeah.
I was either going to wrap up or we needed someone to take one more little turn here before we start landing this plane.
Some of the most interesting alien stories come out of South America. I'm sure you've researched some of those. Yeah. What do you make of some of these stories? Like, what is it? The aliens that were flying around on jetpacks and like cutting people's skin off.
Oh, like the ones that like
the face stealers.
The Aztecs have like drawings of like weird like kind of motorcycle, like they're in this weird like circle thing and they're flying above. Like there's a lot of stuff like
that.
Well,
there's like accounts from like the 90s or the 80s of these tribes being tormented by these things that fly around and steal their faces, like cut their faces off.
I haven't heard about that.
You haven't heard about
specifically,
that?
No.
Oh man.
But I mean, there's throughout history, whatever's happening does seem to kind of relate to whatever technology they're like. For us now, it's these flying saucers and stuff. But if you go back several hundred years, people were seeing chariots in the sky.
Yeah.
It's, whatever this is, that's why it all comes back to, I think these are just demons. Because they always seem to use a technology that they may not understand, but they can they have a definition for this thing they're seeing. And it's always kind of like you go back like hundreds of years and stuff, and these cultures all they saw a boat in the sky or they saw chariots. Like it was something that they could define. And so it always seems to be like that. The specific face stealers, though, no, I haven't heard that one.
Oh man, you got to look it up.
I might be doing an episode about that.
It might have been in Panama. I think it might have been in Panama, but there's a lot of alien stories coming out of South America. There's also a lot of stories about U.S. government being in South America, cleaning stuff up down there. And there's stories of contractors for the government getting injured and killed as a result of encounters with supposed aliens. But
I mean, they're always going after all kinds of stuff. I mean, during the Iraq War, the first place we went was a museum that was housing Gilgamesh and a bunch of old transcripts and scrolls and stuff and tablets, and that was where they set up their first base, and all that stuff disappeared. I mean, then you've got the Russian government and a bunch of people getting involved, finding what they believe was the Ark of the Covenant, and that was in Syria?
Give us a latitude, longitude of that. I'd be interested.
I did an episode on it. I'm like trying to refresh. It's in Antarctica now. Whatever
There's
they
a
found,
lot of weird stuff in Antarctica right
killed a
now.
lot of people. There were like, it was documented news. They dug this site up, and lightning came down and killed hundreds of people.
Have you seen Indiana Jones?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, the dude's face. Yeah.
Don't look.
Don't look.
Something like that. And then a brigade of Russian ships took whatever it was to Antarctica, to a church that's in Antarctica, and took priests with them and transported whatever it was they found to Antarctica.
That's an angle we didn't really cover at all, and we're pretty much out of time. But Antarctica, very interesting. People really aren't allowed to go there. There's a lot of people there, though. A lot of people there, and we don't really know what happens on Antarctica.
A lot of Third Reich exploration.
There was a lot of Third Reich
Did
exploration
a couple
there.
episodes on that too. Yeah, the Nazis were very interested in what was going on there. Might have set up a base because they found coordinates for a submarine for a very specific angle and depth to sail into a spot where the possible hollow Earth was. I won't go too far.
Just give the teaser, and then you can follow up too on your
I've
follow
done an
up
episode. I've already done an episode.
See, there you
He's already
go.
covered
Even
all
better.
this.
Just go see the Patrick's.
What was your site? What was your podcast?
Cryptic Accounts.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in that, Cryptic Accounts.
CrypticAccounts.com.
There you go.
Instagram, Cryptic Accounts Clips. You can email me at crypticapodcast@gmail. And yeah.
Patrick is way more official and prepared, I think, than we were even prepared for, because he's been doing this for such a long time and he's got a ton of content out there on various topics.
Yeah, if you're interested in conspiracy stuff like this, go find my show.
You really should if you are interested, because
Very
he's
well
got
researched.
a lot of stuff out there on it. But
I've spent hundreds of hours at this point digging into all this stuff, all very well documented.
this is, I feel like, our episode of dipping our toe into some of that, but I would say probably not like the main focus of Reform or Die, but I like that we're doing a little bit of crossover and that this was a fun collab, and we'll probably have to have you back on at some point for a eschatology debate.
I'd be down for that.
Yeah, but it's like putting a lot of heavy hitters in the room because it's Bible. Like aliens were all kind of like, yeah, this is what I think. Although Patrick, you've studied a lot more.
I've got very strong opinions.
Yeah, you do.
I'm right.
Yeah, I like the confidence. It's good. But when it comes to the Bible, we're all just like, okay, let's talk about it. Let's. So that could be a long podcast. We might have to do a 2-parter on the eschatology. I feel like that could be a long-winded one. So. All right. Well, maybe we should do the part about closing thoughts here. Brogan, did you want to jump in with any closing thoughts or no? Feeling pretty good over there. You can either nod, shake your head, left, right. He's feeling good. He would have had to borrow the mic from me anyways. So we've only got 4 mics. We'll end with Patrick. Barry, any closing thoughts? What do you think? Aliens, we didn't even really go on the record saying, do we think aliens are real or not, but do you think aliens are real, Barry?
No to extraterrestrial beings, but yes to non-human beings.
Okay.
Biblical beings. Anything that's obviously mentioned in the Bible that's not human, I do believe in, but I don't believe in beings that just evolved randomly on other planets.
All right. Jacob?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same camp. But if they did exist, they would serve God. So that's also a fun fact. But
That's true, yes.
Yeah, they would kneel. But yeah, I think it's more than likely demonic. Whatever cannot be explained with black budget government technology, which we didn't even cover. But whatever can, not be explained by that, I would say it's probably demons. And when they come down, on the White House lawn and offer peace to the world, you should probably not listen to them. Just my little, if that happens, just run away.
Patrick, what do you think?
I mean, I've already kind of said.
How did we do over here? As I would describe myself, a bit more of a normie. You looking back on the podcast, what do you think? Like, are we a little too much in the straight-laced normie camp, or what would you say?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
I think you're starting to look down the rabbit hole.
Okay,
I don't think you've taken a hard tumble yet.
Alice in Wonderland style.
It's definitely one that you can spend a lot of time looking into, and your opinion will definitely evolve the farther you go down it. As for do I believe, I do think there's something. Like I've already said, I think a lot of it's demonic or something extra dimensional, but I will leave it with this because we never even got to this possibility. The term extraterrestrial actually means extra land.
Okay.
So is it from here?
What do you mean here? Earth?
Yeah. And a lot of stuff pops up out of the oceans.
Like land under the water kind of thing?
Yeah, we kind of teased on Antarctica, but what's going on down there? Is it the size we think it is? Is it the shape we think it is? All
Is it
that.
a wall?
Yep.
All right, interesting. I like that. Fun thoughts. You're just teasing the audience here at the end, but I do kind of like what Jacob was talking about earlier with like the government angle. I do feel that we're kind of living in an age with the internet where people can be convinced of something on a broad swath if it's done in a way like I just think about COVID, how much people lost their minds over COVID. And I'm not saying people didn't die. I'm not saying but I do feel like there were humongous, loss of freedom during the COVID era. And the government is always, whoever it is, whether it's sinister or not, people are just looking for ways to take freedom from others. And so I don't know. Part of me kind of with the aliens thing is just keep your head on a swivel and don't let yourself be, led astray by nice sounding things and or horrible sounding things that will, convince you to just give up your rights and your liberties. That's kind of where I lean. I don't know Jacob, do you want to comment on that?
Test everything against scripture.
Yeah, definitely go back to the Bible and look through the word. I know that there's not direct references necessarily to aliens, but whatever you hear, you should be cross-referencing with principles you see there and with passages. So I think that's what Paul commended the Bereans for, and we always try to do that. So I think that's about it. Patrick, thanks for joining us. I should have done a better job introducing you at the beginning. You have such a great channel, Cryptic Accounts, and we're glad you joined us for this, and hope to do another one with you sometime.
Thanks for having me. It was fun. I'd definitely come back and do it again.
All right, guys. It's been Reform or Die and
Cryptic Accounts, Patrick Ryan.
Cryptic Accounts, Patrick Ryan. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.